G'day, mate. G'day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Brass on Tap channel. Do I have an exciting episode for you tonight? It's going to be fantastic. Now, just before I get to that, if you missed episode 1, don't fret because you can go back and rewatch it. Just click on the playlists. And you can just look down there and you'll find that Mike Lovett and my chat have a great, there's some great inspirational things that came out of that and some great techniques he was working on as well. He also mentioned a video that he released last Saturday, Kenny Wheeler, 4 for 1, and there's a little link in there as well, so you can go watch that. It is fantastic watch, so please do. However, without further ado, obviously you know who my guest is, so why don't we get this stream started? Yes, what can I say about my next guest? I mean, he is just a young superstar. He is flying through the ranks in just about everything. He's creating his own ensembles, his trombone playing. He's played on just about everything. I mean, look, here's a little clip. Here, check some of this stuff out. It's all the stuff he's either been involved with, or he's written music for, or you name it. This man's done it, and he's not even 30 years old. It is just insane. He's brought out 3 albums, and I'm giving you, well, ladies and gentlemen, Callum Au. Let's get him on. How you doing, Callum?
Hey Ben, I'm all good. How are you?
Yeah, good, mate. Good. Thanks so much for joining me on this stream. It's an
No, you're
absolute
very
pleasure to
welcome.
have you here. Obviously, you're a very busy man. So tell us, obviously, with COVID going on, you've got sort of 2 ways of life, don't you? You live your life as that trombone player, and you live your life as that composer. So how has this lockdown and COVID times been for you?
Yeah, you're quite right. I do sort of lead a sort of dual existence as a musician, and it's a strange time for all musicians, as you're aware, I'm sure.
Massively.
Um, as far as the trombone playing goes, there hasn't been a whole lot of it. I've had one gig since March
Wow.
at the 606 Club, which they streamed, and you can go and watch it on the
Amazing.
catch up if you like.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's my entire
Wow.
live trombone playing output.
That's incredible.
Um, yeah. On the other hand, the arranging side of things is sort of still ticking over, though there aren't as many projects going on as there were sort of a year ago, but there's not none either. So
Yeah.
I do feel very lucky to be in the position where I can sort of do multiple things. I can do the arranging, I can do the trombone playing as well as and when that sort of thing is happening.
Yeah.
So it is a good position to be in.
And you managed to bring out your I tuned in. You live streamed with James Davison in your group, Quintet. That was quite cool.
Yes, yes, that was great fun.
Yeah.
That was sort of that was sort of a test of the ability to do that sort of thing,
Yeah.
because you never know quite how economically viable these things will be,
Of
and
course.
quite how because it's a lot of time and a lot of effort to do. But thankfully, it went really well. It was very well
Yeah.
received. So we'll probably be doing another
I
one
mean,
fairly soon.
you had a team of experts there, didn't you? Like what a band,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
had background sound guys, and to be fair,
Mm.
like it was a great listen and a great watch. So people, if you're out there, obviously, Callum, you've got a page, don't you? You've got a Facebook page.
I do,
Yeah.
yes.
So head over to Callum's Facebook page. I'm sure he'll plan it all over there on the next one that comes along. So yeah.
Hmm.
So what else? Like we saw half the stuff. I mean, that was just an icing on the cake of the stuff that you've been doing in your young career. Now you spent loads of time in growing up through Nijo. And
That's right, yeah.
for our young guys out there, what kind of tips do you have for like opportunities in music? Obviously, now's not a great time right now, but I'm sure once things opening up, it'll all come back. Do you have any advice for those kind of guys?
Yeah. Um, I'd say that the most important thing to do is to make your own opportunities when you can. Um, Especially nowadays, things don't just sort of, well, sometimes they do, but most of the time things don't just land in your lap.
Yeah.
You've sort of got to put in the groundwork yourself, and there are so many really great musicians in the world and in the country and wherever you happen to be, especially if you're in somewhere like London or New York or one of the big cities in the Western world. There are, and probably like Tokyo and
Yeah.
Sydney and places like that as well. I don't really know, to be honest, but um, there are so many musicians. There are so many really great musicians, and ultimately, nobody is a musician to make money.
No.
No, everyone who is a musician because musicians, you have to be reasonably bright to become a musician, I think, because understanding how the instruments work and how musics work and so forth is not that easy.
Yeah.
So everyone who's chosen to be a musician has chosen that despite the fact that it is not going to be the highest paying or the most money they can make from their career. So they've chosen it because they like it.
Of course.
And if they've chosen it because they like it, it means that they're going to want to play music, especially if it's good music, it's interesting music, it's original music. And something I've found is that it really doesn't matter who you talk to. All of the sort of the older musicians, older is not quite right, but the kind of legends of the
Yeah.
business. People like Andy Wood, people like Simon Gardner,
Been doing it
that
for
that
years.
sort of person. That
Yeah.
they've done it for years and years, and
Yeah.
someone like Andy Woods plays on every single film that's come out
Yeah,
of
he
Britain
has.
for
It's
the last
incredible.
20 years.
Yeah.
But they're all really, nice. They're all really up for it, and they all really like to play
Yeah.
music.
Yeah.
And you can get a huge amount out of that because people are interested, and
Absolutely.
it's a really great thing about this business
Yeah.
that isn't so much the case. I doubt you'd get I don't know, an accountant, the top accountant in the world, whoever that might be, just coming and sitting in a pub to play through some big band charts on
No.
a Sunday lunchtime.
Yeah.
Or do the equivalent in accounting, whatever that is. I don't know, do some
Counting
serious
numbers in an
accounting.
office. Yeah. Yeah. Fun
But
times.
but that will happen in music. And if you're a young person wanting to get into the industry and wanting to like create some music of your own, there's no substitute for just getting out there and doing it.
Yeah.
And the first things you do won't be that good, but that's life. Everything starts at a certain level and works its way up. And you know, the more you do, the better it'll become. And the more and surrounding yourself with people who are better than you is the way you're going to improve the fastest you possibly can.
Yeah, I mean that's massively great advice. I mean, as the one thing I've found these days is that the culture of life these days is they expect everything to be now, and they expect everything to be instant, you know, and it just doesn't work that way. And as you know, you just gotta work hard and eventually, you know, you'll find yourself in a place and you'll look around and you'll go, holy smokes, look where I am, look where I'm playing, I'm doing what I love, you know. But yeah, it's not going to happen straight away. Just like this stream, you know, I started this up, you know, and I'm not expecting big things, but hey, I'm already talking to Mike Lovett and I'm talking to Callum Au. I mean, I'm happy. So, you know, this is great. So yeah, so again, so you went through Nijo. So how did you, so I read somewhere that you arranged something like 50 plus charts for them as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think the number was about 75,
Holy smokes.
80. It's somewhere in that region.
So, so when did you start then? How young were you?
I started playing the piano when I was about 6 or 7.
Okay.
Which I found I sort of enjoyed it for what it was, but I didn't really I didn't love it. I sort of really liked the fact that it was there and you could play it, but it didn't really I didn't really think about it beyond oh, it's piano lesson time, good, I'll go and do it, and now it's time to practice the piano, you know, like kids do.
Yeah.
When I was maybe, I'd say probably 10, maybe 9, that sort of age, my school was given some brass instruments. They got a trumpet, a trombone, and a baritone horn. And because in my third form class, I was the tallest kid, and I was the one who could reach the 6th position out of the kids in the class. I got given this trombone, and my parents had no idea that it was coming. I just turned up with it one day.
Brilliant.
And what I realized about the trombone was that, firstly, it's much easier than the piano, so that's a good thing. But secondly, when you play it, you don't ever really play it on your own. You're always playing it in a context with other people. And I did like little junior wind bands and junior brass bands and things. And eventually I ended up doing a junior big band. And it was always sort of, I suddenly realized what the point of music was when I started playing the trombone, because I was playing with other people and in a sort of social environment, but also combining forces with other people to produce something that is impossible to produce on your own. You know, as far as a solo trombone goes, solo trombone is not something that I think anyone sane could listen to for hours and hours and hours on end, unless they're a trombone player with a little bit of a masochism complex. But if you look at all the music that trombones feature in a section of 3 or 4, it's pretty much everything from Mozart's day right up until, the present day. All the films are absolutely made by the trombones, and you can't achieve that on your own. It's all about the sort of collective uh, force and the collective achievements of the various ensembles. So that's sort of why I gravitated towards it,
Oh, great.
I guess.
Yeah. And then how did you do that transition then? Where you just sat there playing a piece one time and you went, hang on a minute, I can write something better than this, or or did you sit, or were you just at the piano and go and just had an idea and just sort of, and that's how it began?
So I played around with notation software when I was in school. I had Sibelius 2, I think it was at the
That's
time.
it too.
Um,
Brilliant.
and I would sort of write the occasional little thing, like a lot of kids do,
Yeah.
just in their room. And I got it for my GCSEs, I think, for my GCSE compositions.
Yeah.
But I didn't really do anything proper, proper in inverted commas, until I came to Nigel.
Right.
Bill Ashton was a huge help in this regard. Nigel, it's changed a lot in recent years because Bill's retired, and it's quite different to how it used to be when I was in it. But when I was in the band, it was sort of this chaotic, sort of like apprenticeship style thing where there wasn't much formal education of any sort going on.
Right.
But the amount you learned just from sort of doing things and being thrown in the deep end and being expected to just do things was quite a lot. So with the arranging, Bill used to write these songs, and he was a prolific songwriter, and he'd turn up with a new song almost every week, and he'd want someone to arrange them for the band. And he'd come and waving this sheet of paper around, which wouldn't have any chord symbols on it, and it wouldn't really have, it may or may not have all of the melody written in. And he'd say, who wants to arrange this one for me? And he'd pay you £100 to do it as well. So as a young student, I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. And of course, the first 10 arrangements I did for the band were absolutely diabolical. They were dreadful. But the band would tell me exactly what was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And by the time I'd got to number 30 or so, they were a bit better. By the time I'd got to number 50 or so, they were pretty good. And the last sort of 5 or so arrangements I did for Nigel are things that I will still pull out on a gig and I'm perfectly happy with even now.
Yeah.
The other 70, not so much. But that's the learning process. You can't really do it in any other way. It always comes from a process of iteration and sort of repeating things and doing it over and over again until you got it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be persistent, don't you? Constantly.
Yeah.
And that's musicians are. So anyone watching is obviously passionate about music, and you guys know if you want something right or you want to be able to do something, when it's high, low, fast, whatever, a slow. You have to be persistent, constantly doing that, or else it's not. And it's the same with composition. And I'm glad you said that, because I mean, I've transcribed. I've never really. I obviously did school transcription, not scriptures, composing and stuff like that. But I've never dived into what you do, and it's incredible to know that you actually started off with something that you weren't actually happy with, because everything I've heard of yours is incredible. So,
well, I mean, it's. I feel really fortunate to have gone through that sort of non-system that I did, because I don't think I would have got it, or I certainly wouldn't have got it together so quickly in any other way, because I just had so many more reps in a short space of time than a normal person gets. And I had a band to play it who were really good and really mean.
I mean, you had some monsters in there, didn't you? Like,
I did, yes.
Yeah.
Tom Walsh was in the band at the same time as me, as was let's see, Laura Jurd was there. She's great. Trombones were people like Barry Clements, who's amazing.
Yeah.
Robbie Harvey. And then the saxes, there was Nadim Tamouri, who's probably my favorite sax player in the
Yeah.
world. But yeah, the other thing about that band that was really important is that they really didn't hold back on the criticism. If something
Yeah.
was wrong, they'd tell you it was wrong. And I think that there's a bit of a culture nowadays of, keeping people feeling as, as sort of safe as they can.
Yeah.
And that's all very well because you don't want people to feel like they're having a nasty time. But it's not always the best, most conducive environment to learning. I think if you have to be made uncomfortable if you want to learn something new.
Massively, yeah.
And they were very good at doing that.
Good. Yeah. Well, I mean, go back to a bit of trombone playing. So people like, say, Andy Wood or whatever, like I'll go to a gig and I'll see him playing these ridiculously beautiful lines, on top chair, and then the next gig I go to, he's playing bass trombone. Do you know what I mean? Or go see Gordon, and Gordon mainly sticks to his stuff, and then you've got the other guys that they have their chairs usually, but there's some people that do it all. So, what about yourself? How do you do you specialize or?
My bass trombone is in storage, and I hope it stays there for a little while. I don't really like playing the bass trombone for two reasons. Firstly, I've never really practiced it very much. Yeah. It's something that I have because everyone has one who plays tenor trombone nowadays, but it doesn't. I play it when I have to, and if I'm called up to do a gig that is just bass trombone, unless it's ridiculous money, I will always tell them, look, I'll do it if you really want me to, but here's Barry Clements, here's Simon Minchell, here's these wonderful bass trombonists who will do it much better than me.
Oh,
I like to play, I mostly play big band tenor trombone, and I'm perfectly happy on any of the three chairs, though I think second trombone is my favorite chair to play, if I had to choose, because you're not sort of faffing around on the bottom end of the slide where you have to do the low positions.
Yeah.
There's some jazz, but not all of it, and it's not quite as hard work as lead trombone. So that's if I could choose a chair for myself, I'd always choose the second trombone chair. But
Nice.
I'll do anything if you ask me to, and
of course,
and you really want me.
Is there anything that you have ever come across as, say, a hurdle or a gate for yourself, trombone wise, or have you always just been surrounded by people who, if you were to have a problem, they could lead you in the right direction? Obviously you've got teachers and stuff, but you're always surrounded by incredible friends as well, who just are amazing players. So how did you go? If you hit a problem, do you go, right, I'm going to get a study book out, and if you do, what kind of stuff do you work on? Or do you go, you know what, I'm going to go play with this person, listen, and bounce off each other? Like, how do you approach?
Very much the latter. I think that there are a lot of methods, and there are a lot of different people as well, and there are methods that would work tremendously well for one person that would be counterproductive for another, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any one-size-fits-all approach to brass playing, because people have, for one thing, people have such different shaped mouths and teeth, and some people have an overbite, some people have an underbite, which literally changes the direction that the air goes through the mouthpiece. So I find that there's no one true method that sort of sorts everything out. If I've got my sort of routine, if I've got something coming up, is one of the things I actually like to do is play firstly the Jamie Aebersold 12 keys tunes, because they're fast, they're hard, and they really make you they take no prisoners. They force you into doing it right. So there's a book called Giant Steps, I think, and I don't play that one, but there's 5 or 6 tunes in 12 keys at about crotchet equals 240 in that book, and that's a useful sort of kick yourself up the arse and make sure you're doing it right. The other thing I like to do is just play kind of the Dorsey melodies, things like Sentimental Over You and Marie, because I find that if that's working, everything else is probably working too. I've never really had any serious chops issues. I've never had to do a kind of rebuild. I should really credit my first teacher, Terry Reaney, was a trumpet player. He's retired now, but he was one of the solo trumpet players in the Sid Lawrence Orchestra.
Yeah.
He took over from Sid when Sid retired, and he was very, very firm on the chops thing. And he really did set me up just right from a very young age. So in that regard, I've never kind of had to relearn how to play, which a lot of people do, and I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I'd say those two things are my kind of general maintenance type things, because they're about the most difficult things that you're ever expected to do as a trombone player. So if you can do them, anything else is going to be okay.
I mean, you've massively hit, and a truth on the head there, where there's probably a lot of people out there, professional, amateur, and maybe not so much professional, because they could probably deal with it themselves, that have gone through embouchure changes or are sitting there saying things don't work, And I mean, I've been through 3 embouchure changes. I mean, when I first started playing, I had no front teeth, so I was playing pedal notes, so I started playing over here. So then I had to reset over here when I was about 10, something like that, and then everything started working, but it was downstream.
Yeah,
didn't think anything of it, and then I became 18 years old, and my teacher was John Hoffman. I don't know whether you heard of him. He's an American that literally did Buddy Rich. He did Roaring of '74 and all that kind of stuff,
Right.
But then he moved to Australia, and he reset me as a straight player, like completely.
Right.
So, and then ever since then, I've never had to change. You know what I mean? Sometimes the wife talks to me and goes, "You're creeping off with it there." Back to the old way. So I have to reset it. But you're right. There is no one way. I mean, have you ever seen Byron Stripling play?
No, I haven't.
If you look at him, he looks like he's in pain sometimes. Like it's down here. It's all like that, but he still sounds incredible. It doesn't really matter. Whatever works for you, and it's great to get out there and experiment. And obviously, Callum, you give lessons, don't you, as well?
Yep.
Yeah. So head over to his website, everyone, and make sure you get lessons, because obviously he's got a very happy setup, and he could definitely help as many people as possible. Cool. We had a comment just pop up. You'll like this as well.
Go on. Hello.
Becoming a musician despite knowing you might not make any money. Ain't that the truth? It certainly is. We all do it for the passion of it, don't we? So, yeah. So, okay. You've played on some incredible gigs, especially for someone like yourself who's so young. But there are so many amazing young players coming through London at the moment. You guys could put an entire big band together of just gurus of what they're What are you guys, mid-20s, late 20s? Something like that.
I'm 30 now.
Oh, you're 30 now. Oh, there you go.
I'm 30 now. I'm a bit older than Louis Dowdeswell and James Copers and James Davison and some of that lot.
What a group!
Yeah, I'm a bit older than Tom Walsh as well. I think I'm probably. I mean, the generation that I sort of think of myself as part of starts at about Freddie Gavita. He's probably the eldest, the elder statesman, as it were, at a grand old age of about 34. And the youngest is probably around about Louis and James, who are about 26.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So that's my sort of period. But Louis probably thinks slightly differently. He's probably 4 years above and 4 years below in his mind. So I don't know.
Well, I mean, now that since you've brought him up, and obviously a lot of people, a lot of people around the world, they love high notes, and Louis does them incredibly well.
Yes.
And a lot of people don't probably know. Well, they probably do now, because about time you got recognition. But that you ranged everything on on that CD, didn't you, for him? High
Yes, I
Score.
did.
Yeah.
I did.
So
Yes.
tell us how that process came, how you came about, and you know.
It was actually it almost also when said earlier things don't just fall into your lap. They don't, because that was a huge amount of effort on Louis's part and kind of on my part as well to put it all together. But it did sort of emerge. We didn't have a plan at the start. Let's record all this stuff and let's put it on YouTube and so forth and make an album out of it. It really did emerge organically, bit by bit, building on what we had. So I believe we were in the Apex Theatre in Bury St Edmunds on a big band gig for Pete Long.
Mm-hmm.
And Louis had just seen this little video on YouTube of a kind of 16-year-old playing the theme from Frozen, Let It Go, with a karaoke backing track. And it had like sort of 1 million views or something, which seemed fairly ludicrous for what it was. No, I hope no offense to whoever that 16-year-old was. It was perfectly nice, but it wasn't quite it wasn't a full big band for a start. So we sort of decided to record that specifically as a cover, specifically with the aim of trying to get as many people to watch it as possibly could.
Well, you definitely got that.
I think there's a bit of a snobbery in music, which I think is a real shame. And there's sort of the feeling that as soon as something's popular, it's no longer any good.
Yeah.
And I reject that utterly. I think that not only is it good, but it shows that you're actually having an impact on some people because they're listening to it in some small way. So anyway, we recorded that one in Louis's flat with a tiny little Apollo 4-way interface. And then we just kind of did more and more over the next kind of couple of years. And eventually we realized we've got almost enough stuff to make an album here. So I just wrote the last 4 charts and
got them done. Yeah,
bashed them all out with, and the last few had a real sax section on them as well, which was the last last edition.
What an album! I mean, hey Tom, Tom's joins us. Tom Walsh saying hello.
Hello.
Hey Tom, how you doing? No, thanks very much for watching, buddy. So you went from that, but you didn't. That wasn't your first album. Your first album was Something Coming, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, it's a beautiful album. I remember that. Yeah, tell us a little about that one.
Well, I recorded that. I told you about all the arranging I did for Nigel. Well, I kind of took that money and put it in a bank account. And when I graduated from university, I decided that I was going to use that money to make a big band album, which might be a financially ruinous thing to do. But I think it was a really good thing for me to do at the time in order to kind of get my name out there and kind of show people that I exist or I existed. And I used a lot of my Tom Walsh, who just commented, played lead trumpet on that album. A lot of my favorite musicians then and indeed now are on that album in the big band. It was just sort of an opportunity to try some things out, do some arranging, write something that I hoped people would sort of enjoy.
It's a beautiful album. I like it.
Yeah, I was very happy with the results.
So then going from that, and then obviously you've got Louis, and then obviously tell us about your latest one with Claire Martin. Like if people haven't heard it, you got to go out and hear this. When I did the promo, I added that little snippet in there, and it's a hell of a line. I mean, I could have added the one that goes up to where you got the whole band running up, and then the lead trumpet finishes on top, double D. You know, and it's just like it's just a power situation. So tell me, but then you listen to the album, and you've got these stunningly beautiful long orchestral lines, and like, so you're not just concentrating on your big band. So how do you approach it? Like Bobby Shue came over one time. Sorry, I'll go back. I'll ravel for a bit. Bobby Shue came over for a bit and did a few workshops. And I mean, we all love Bobby. Who doesn't love Bobby?
Hmm.
And one of the things that's always stuck in my mind is he goes, I keep a trumpet beside my bed, you know, and he goes, oh, because sometimes I just wake up in the middle of the night and I just have a lick stuck in my head, and he picks it up and write it down, just make sure he remembers it, sort of thing. And it's like that's crazy. So do you do that? Do you wake up and go, oh, I like this line, or do you go, throw everything at a piece of paper and see what happens? How do you get started?
I'm a very, very heavy sleeper, a very deep sleeper. So I've literally never woken up and written anything.
Oh, there you go.
I wake up in the morning and that's my day. And then as soon as I'm in bed, that's the end. No thinking. No, I probably dream. I don't remember them.
There you go. Or maybe you're writing out of your dreams. You never know.
Possibly. Yeah. That album, I decided that I've done in a similar way to how I wrote. I decided I wanted to record Something's Coming as a sort of calling card, trying to sort of become more known.
Yeah.
I really wanted to record this so that because people I think know me as a big band writer, and I've been, I love writing for big bands. It's still probably the thing that I like to do the most, but it's not the only thing that I can do. And I really wanted to have the ability to write for the full orchestra, which was about, I think, there are about 83 musicians on the album. So 83 minus 17, what's that? 83, 70, 66 people in the orchestra.
Yeah.
I really wanted to have full creative control over what I was writing, because I've done plenty of stuff for kind of larger ensembles, symphony orchestras and things, but usually there's quite a strict brief on those sorts of jobs. It's usually usually they'll actually give you the rhythm section either pre-recorded or a very, very clear example of what it is, and there'll be a vocalist as well, and there's not much you can do around that. And I actually love doing that as well. It's a great kind of challenge to fit things to that. But I really wanted complete creative control on this project so that it could sort of act as a calling card and a showreel of what I can do. I find that the orchestral side of things I almost enjoyed more than the big band side of things, because the big band I've done hundreds of times, and
of course,
there's so many great musicians on both sides. But a lot of the orchestral musicians are people I've kind of got to know a bit more recently, and people who are, they're just such amazing musicians, and I've learned so much from them. People like John Mills, the first violinist who leads the orchestra. He also leads the Tippett Quartet. People like Hugh Webb, the harpist, who helped me a lot with quite a lot of the harp stuff. It's the quality of musicianship that we have in London in terms of instrumental musicians is absolutely sensational.
Yes, it is.
And the orchestra on this album was pretty much all my first choice people, based on people I've worked with before, people I've heard and really liked how they play. And it was a real treat to sit there and listen to the stuff being recorded.
Yeah, that's great. That's amazing. We've had a question come through, not on YouTube, but it is asking, Callum, do you do arranging, composing consultations?
Yes, I do.
Okay. How can they approach you for that one?
You can find them on my website. If you go to the menu, I'm loading it up now.
So you don't give them a false way of going.
Yeah. It's linked on the homepage actually. If you scroll down a bit on the homepage, there's a link to a thing called Arranging Composition Tuition, and then click more here, and then you can see what I offer and what you can get and so forth.
So that was a comment from Ian Shepherd. Yeah. So Ian, head over to Callum's website, and it'll all be there. I have seen you actually. I looked up your Callum AU music, and obviously you and I have done business before. I bought charts off you before, and yeah, it looks great. Yeah, I got your new one. It looks the website looks incredible.
I have to credit Nadia from NADWorks,
yeah,
who did all of the back end and front end on the website. She's fantastic,
looks amazing.
and she really knows what she's doing on the graphic design side.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Okay, so you've done these 3 albums, which is amazing. I saw on some of your show reels that you've done some movies, or your tunes have been incorporated in some movies. Is there anything else down the line for that?
Well, movies, who knows? I don't know if there are any new movies being made at the moment.
Yeah, you got a good call. Get on Netflix. Netflix has everything going on.
Netflix are still going. The last thing I did was hilariously Cats.
Okay.
The Andrew Lloyd, the absolutely critically panned Andrew Lloyd. But you know the scene that everybody hated was the one where Rebel Wilson eats a cockroach. It's a human child, but it's got a cockroach for a face. And Rebel Wilson picks it up and eats it. Yeah. And anyway, I scored that scene.
Brilliant. So they hated that. Brilliant.
They absolutely hated it. So
well, you've done your job properly. You've installed emotions in people. So
yeah. I don't think the music was the thing that was at fault with that film.
I don't either.
The fact that they gave all the cats arseholes and had them wandering around, it wasn't very nice.
It was interesting, But, well, I hope in the future anyway. It'll be great to hear some of your stuff get on there. It'll be awesome.
Yeah.
So going back to, you obviously have got this great connection of musicians around you, and obviously you've got a great relationship with Louis Dahlsdorf. Now, I've heard there's something in the pipeline coming up.
There is, yes.
So I think, mate, we may as well. Is it time to reveal it?
Why not?
Come on. Let's. What's coming up, Callum?
So we're going to be launching, and this is going to come out imminently. Quite when imminently is, I'm not sure, because we're sort of scrambling to get all the assets together and put everything in. But everything's recorded, everything's mixed, everything is bounced and in position. We're basically waiting for some graphic design and some kind of ad sort of stuff. But we're going to be launching what we call the Ultimate Big Band Toolkit.
Great.
So it's it's a play along where you get, for whatever your big band instrument is, you'll get the parts to 10 specially written compositions and arrangements that I've done, which I've tried to write to cover a really wide range of styles.
So from beginner and professional sort of thing, moving.
It's intermediate to advanced. Cool. We're going to be doing an easier one further down the line, but that's another conversation. It's sort of, I'd say it's grade 7, grade 8 plus.
Okay.
Well, but it's but it's covering everything from kind of 30s style. Nice. Ellington-y, kind of like the Mooch, all the way up until kind of modern big band, Maria Schneider-y, European style stuff, or Jaco Pastorius fusion-y sort of stuff. There's a really wide range of charts in there, which we sort of chose deliberately for that reason, because what we realized is that, well, especially at the moment, no one's getting to play in big bands at all. But even in a normal time, the majority of people don't really get to play in a big band more than once a week or twice a week.
Yeah.
And you can't really get the reps in if you're only playing in a big band twice a week. So we wanted to make something where you can cover everything that you need to in the one book. So it's a practice aid, and it's sort of a tutorial. It's kind of teaching you about the various styles.
Sounds great.
And we're in addition to the toolkit, we're also releasing the tracks we recorded for the toolkit as an album, which will be it'll all land. I think, judging by where we're at, we were hoping to have it out by tomorrow, but that's not going to happen. Judging by where we're at, I would expect it within the next 2 weeks. We're very excited about that.
So people, keep your eyes out for this. This is super exciting. So whereabouts do people go to find this? Is it both on yours and Louis' website?
It will be on my site and it will be on Louis' site.
Brilliant.
So it's in as many places as possible.
Of course.
We'll be advertising it as much as we possibly can. So I imagine it'll be all over your timelines. Slightly annoyingly, probably.
Well, what I'll do as well, when this gets released, everybody, I'll put a link in the comments of this video as well, so then you can do a link straight to it and check it all out, because that'll be amazing. It'll take you to Callum's website.
But Tom, who commented a minute ago, is playing lead trumpet on the album.
Amazing.
So you are replacing Tom Walsh in the big band when you play the stuff.
That's some big shoes to fill.
Yeah, indeed.
We've had a question come in, Callum. This is from Andy Lightfoot. It says, Callum, it's a pleasure to listen to you. Love your music. How long on average does it take you to write a new chart, and how many drafts are done before the final product? Okay,
interesting question. So I'll give you three answers, because there's a chart, and then there's kind of something that you come up with completely from scratch. The sort of thing where you're basically writing something to a template. So the rhythm section is going to be almost exactly as you've been given. The vocal list is going to be exactly as you've been given, and you've got to fill in kind of horns, strings, that sort of thing. That doesn't take me very long anymore. I could probably turn something like that around. I'd usually allow myself a day to do it. And I'd say that it's not a hugely hard working day. So, it's 6 hours or something like that. At that point, how many revisions it takes really depends on who I'm writing it for. I like the person I'm writing it for to be happy. So I'll perfectly happily send it back and forth until they are. Usually there's not more than 1 or 2 revisions before they've got everything they need. But I don't tend to submit something before I'm happy with it myself. So that's that. Now, on the other hand, if I'm writing something for Louis' band, say, where there's no template and the entire thing has to come out of my head, as it were. This is if it's an arrangement, though, where the melody's already known. I'd allow myself 2 days to do that. And I could probably, that can sometimes spill over into a third day, but I'd allow myself sort of 12, 14 hours to do that sort of thing. There's a lot more thought goes into it, and there's a lot more there's a lot more sort of creative decisions to make in terms of forms and structures, and that is where you will end up with more revisions and more sort of drafts and more things like that. Then the third sort of thing is a new composition. And if I'm writing a new composition, it really is a bit how long is a piece of string, because it takes me as long as it takes me to write it, really. But if I was forced to write a new composition on a deadline, someone came along and said, this is an entirely outlandish situation that should never happen, but someone comes along and they said, we need big band tune in a kind of in any sort of style you like, but it's going to be the 5-minute opening sequence to a film, and the only thing that's happening is credits on the screen. So it can be kind of in any sort of in any sort of way you like, because we're going to fit the film to your
Well,
piece. If someone
you'd
said
be
that,
introducing everything, wouldn't you?
yeah,
So
if somebody said that, and but the catch is I've got to do it in 72 hours, or it's not, or it's going to go away, then I could do that. Um, but um, but it really does take as long as it takes when it's that sort of thing, and I can't really put a number on it. But yeah, something fairly structured. I allow myself a day, and I'll always get it done.
yeah, I hope that answered your question, Andy. Thanks so much for
Yeah.
commenting. Yeah, so another thing I've noticed actually lately, this is completely off topic, is you've become favoring of the valve trombone. So how did that come about? Obviously, there's some people out there that would never think of going, oh, I'm going to do this. Do you have a passion to be a trumpet player all of a sudden?
Well, I bought my valve trombone because I play the valve trombone chair, the third trombone chair in Pete Long's Echoes of Ellington band,
Yeah.
and I had a really dreadful valve trombone that cost me £10 on eBay, and it was embarrassing. It had a hole in it, and it was so bad. I just thought, look, I can't be a self-respecting musician and turn up to work with this. Though I did do that for the first few gigs. So I bought myself a nice King 2B valve trombone, and I then kind of just randomly went to not randomly, because he's a good friend, but I went to James Davison's final recital, and he played at his opening tune, the tune Tete a Tete, which is the Clark Terry Bob Brookmeyer quintet. It's kind of their signature tune, I guess.
Yeah.
So I sort of said to Jim afterwards, that was fantastic, but he played it with a tenor sax player, not with a valve trombonist. And I said, that's fantastic. We should play all that stuff, because I've got this valve trombone now, and I'm not really using it for very much. So we started the quintet.
Great.
And we named it after that tune, Quintet a Tete.
Yeah.
Jim and I wrote quite a lot of music for it. We've written probably 12 or 15 tunes now, which is more than enough to fill a jazz set.
Oh, yeah.
We really like it, because it's the kind of idea behind the quintet was jazz for people who don't have to understand everything about jazz in order to like it.
Yeah.
So you know how you get a lot of jazz bands where you'll have a tenor sax solo that lasts for 15 minutes, and you'll kind of have a sort of a vague free section where there's sort of this sort of thing going on.
Yeah.
There's none of that. All the tunes are either happy or they're ballads and they're heartfelt. There's not kind of endless misery straight eighths at any point.
That's great.
The solos are relatively short, and it's all kind of either swinging, or it's groovy, or it's the one ballad that we play per set.
Sounds like one ballad.
and the idea was that is that people can listen to it who don't necessarily understand jazz but kind of like it and will enjoy it, and we hope that they do.
Yeah. Oh, it's great. As I said, can't wait for your next set. That's gonna be great.
Well, we're actually recording it now, unless we get told that we're not allowed to by the government. We're going to be recording an album next month, in almost exactly a month, on the 27th and 28th, I think. We're going to be recording an album with the quintet.
Great. Oh, that's
exciting.
That's very exciting. Are you going to be doing that through with Louis Dowsdall's stuff as well?
No, the album we're recording at, I think we're going to record it at Trinity School in Croydon.
Oh, nice.
Which has the most amazing piano you've ever seen. It's a proper Steinway Model D full size thing. I mean, this is Trinity School is a very big, very posh independent school,
Yeah.
and they have a lot of money. And I don't know if you know the bassist Joe Pettit.
I know the name,
Um,
but I don't know him personally.
yeah,
No.
he's a nice chap. He runs the Len Phillips big band.
Okay.
But Joe is kind of their um, head of music tech or something like that. So he gets all the good stuff in,
Great.
and they let out the school studio space to musicians who need it
That's very
when the
handy.
school's in half term. So it's a really good resource.
That is great. It's great to know. All
Mm.
right. Well, how about we do a little quick fire?
Sounds good.
Okay. Uh, favorite trombone piece?
Ooh. Okay, I'm going to choose a slightly strange one. There's an album called Lloyd Elliott and His Trombone,
Okay.
which was recorded in the 50s by Lloyd Elliott. And Elliott is spelt Ulyate, not the way you would expect it to be
Yeah.
spelt. Um, and he tracked it up himself. It was one of the first ever kind of multi-tracked trombone albums. But the version of Solitude on that is absolutely
Is
stunning,
it?
and I think
I
that's
have to look
probably
that up.
my favorite trombone piece. Though there also has to be an honourable mention to Chris Dean's take on the what's that tune called? I've forgotten. The Fool on the Hill
Yeah.
that he recorded recently with Nick West. That's just beautiful as well. It's a strong contender.
That's great. We've actually had a question just quickly come through from Andy. Said if you had to put favorite top three arrangements you've written in order, what would they be?
Oh God. It's putting me on the spot. Okay. Bridge Over Troubled Water from Louis' album's a favorite of mine.
Great
And
tune.
these are all kind of more to do with how they've been realized and how they've been
Yeah.
played than anything else. And the thing I love about that is Nadim's tenor sax solo. It's just
Oh,
wonderful. Then another favorite of mine, I guess, would be I Concentrate on You from the new album for exactly the same reason. Um, the I don't know about another one. I also like I Get Along Without You very well, also from the new album because of Andy Wood's little solo,
oh, yeah.
which is beautiful as well.
He's stunning boy. That one.
Yeah.
Stunning player. That's great. Have you ever listened to a piece and right while it's being recorded and go, oh, I should have added that, or like have you heard something else and gone, oh,
Should have added it. Almost never. No.
no,
Should
that's
have
good.
should have taken it out. Yes, absolutely. But that's easy. That you just take it out.
Just go and cut.
Yeah. Yep.
Ah, fair one. That's good. So, favorite gig you've ever done?
Favorite gig I've ever done. Um, from a musical perspective, it's probably one of the quintet gigs, actually.
Great.
The first quintet gig we did at Ronnie's was just so fun.
Yep.
It was kind of we all had a bit of a buzz because loads of our friends came down because the Ronnie's Late Show, which sadly is on hiatus at the moment, is free for musicians. So loads of people who we knew came down and watched, and it was a really great atmosphere. And it was the first time we played a lot of that stuff in public. So that was I remember that very fondly as being a really fun gig. In terms of just kind of the sheer ridiculousness of it, though, the most fun I've ever had on a gig was a trip to the Seychelles.
Oh, yeah.
Which
Wow.
was sponsored, which was all paid for by the disgraced prince of one of the Gulf states. I don't know which one. It was all very vague, and we stayed there for about a week to play one 1 hour set.
Wow.
So that was great for those reasons.
That's great. We have another question come through from Dave Bower. Nice to see you, dude. Here, he says, favorite musician, any instrument, any genre.
Favorite musician?
Yeah.
Okay. That would have to be. Either Nelson Riddle or John Williams.
Very good.
If for the stuff that they wrote rather than the stuff they played. I'm not sure. Nelson Riddle was a bass trombone player, but I don't think he was an amazing bass trombone player. John Williams was a pianist and a trumpet player, but I don't think I've ever heard anything that he played on. But the stuff they wrote is sensational.
Have you ever worked with John Williams at all?
No.
No. Okay. That was a quick one.
No, sadly.
Yeah. There was a great... I can't remember which chart it was, but you wrote a chart and you videoed it up, and then if people were quick enough and they paused quick enough, you put little quotes, little names of all the little snippets you did.
I think that was the Incredibles.
Was it the Incredibles?
Louis' version of the Incredibles? Yeah.
Yeah, that was
for
one
the
of my favorite
bits that I stole. Yeah.
That was great. Well, yeah, I can't thank you enough for joining me, Callum.
Thank you for having me. It's been great fun.
Is there anything else you'd like to get out there? I mean, if not, is there anything you want to get out there?
I guess as a sort of public service announcement,
you can do what you want. Yeah.
Just everyone who's sort of in a position where they can should just keep supporting musicians and keep supporting music.
Agreed.
Because firstly, music's in a bit of a rough spot at the moment, as everyone who's not been living under a rock is aware, for the obvious reason, which I won't mention. But secondly, it really would be a shame if all the musicians in the world had to stop doing music and do normal jobs, because it would be a shame for them, but it would be even more of a shame for the people who have to do the normal jobs, because all the really strange, weird, autistic musicians out there, which is most musicians, because you have to be a bit strange and weird to become a musician, would then be working with all of the other people in the world. They'd all be working in Tesco, or they'd be air traffic controllers. I don't really want to imagine what certain musicians would be like as an air traffic controller. So, it's for your own good as well, as well as for ours. So, keep supporting music where you can, whether it's through watching these streamed gigs, which I know are not as good as going to see a live gig, but it's something, whether it's through buying an album, whether it's through whatever you're doing, whether it's through just not using Spotify for a day and buying an album instead. Whichever one of these you decide to do, if you can, please keep supporting music, because if there's no musicians, there is no music, and that would be a sad world.
That's such a good point, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to start this up, because I wanted to get you guys out there, and I want the world to notice you guys that are musicians around the world that are putting the gigs out there. Get you guys more support. Notice that the government need to do something about this. It's getting ridiculous now. But yeah, so thanks so much for that, Callum.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Obviously, everyone, if you want Callum to do a lesson, or if you want to arrange something, obviously consultations to do with composing, arranging, head to his website. As you can see, he's very friendly. So he's more than happy to do that. Obviously, go over to his Facebook page, hit like all the notifications, because I'm sure when the quintet comes back up, he's going to be putting it up there.
Mm-hmm.
Keep a lookout for his new big band toolbox. That is going to be is that the official name?
The Ultimate Big Band Toolkit.
Ultimate Big Band Toolkit. Right.
Yeah.
I'll get that in the comments down.
It's going to be here very, very soon.
Keep your eyes out for it. This is going to be a game changer, I think. So
I hope so.
Yeah. So let's just thank you so much, Callum, for doing that.
Thank you, Ben.
And what I'll do is I'll probably do a follow up down the line, maybe with Louis, and see how the big band.
See how it's getting on.
Yeah, it'd be great catching up and everything. So yeah. So apart from that, Callum, I hope you stay safe.
Likewise.
And good luck with everything coming up. Hopefully down the track. Hopefully in 6 months' time, we might catch up again for another one of these.
Yes, indeed.
See how life's doing. All right.
Sounds good.
All right, dude. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks,
See you
everyone.
later.
Thank you very much. Catch you later.